We are just
That
about to get
microphone?
started.
No.
Start recording and start streaming, and that's all I need to do, right?
I don't hear myself in my headset.
I hear you now.
Can you hear me in there? Yeah, would
I
like
can hear you,
that.
Neil.
Yeah. Hello. Hello. Testing.
Hey, Neil, can you hear us?
There you go. No,
Can you hear yourself?
I can't hear myself.
How about now?
There, I can.
Hey, Neil, how
Okay.
you doing? Can you hear us?
I'm doing fine. Doing fine.
That should be
Okay, good. So
Very good,
without
thank you.
further ado, let's go ahead and get wheels up. This is Airline Radio Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Airline Radio Show with Captain Neil Holland, co-pilot Harry Lindquist, and cabin stewardess. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Airline Radio Show with Captain Neil Holland, co-pilot Harry Lindquist, and cabin stewardess Emily Boyer. We're now preparing for departure. We're expecting smooth skies ahead, so sit back, relax, enjoy today's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Airline Radio Show with Captain Neil Holland, co-pilot Harry Lindquist, and cabin stewardess Emily Boyer. We're now preparing for departure. We're expecting smooth skies ahead, so sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
You can hear everyone.
I can hear.
Just moments ago.
Are you hearing the Come Fly With Me song?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's broken up.
When it's done, will you just go ahead and start the show for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I haven't been this confused since I got up this morning. You know, over a period of 16 years, I have operated the show using Blog Talk Radio, which was the only type of broadcast that had podcast and live talk. And we occasionally had problems with it, mostly electrical. When we had rain here, it would knock us off the air. And so we had our problems. And even, as I've mentioned before, we've even had obscene calls. They've been quite interesting to listen to that before you find out it is obscene that they're talking about. So, but at any rate, we're experiencing this. Still, it's a new platform for us to be using, and hopefully we're fine-tuning it as we do it. And so we're hoping that folks will bear with us about doing this. Now, I don't know who the letter R. Oh, that's Renee. Renee, can you say hello?
Hello.
Renee is
Can you hear me?
has been listening to us for probably about as long as we've been on the air. And
Pretty well.
okay, there you are. Now I hear you.
Okay, good.
Renee is from Canada, and he has been a faithful listener over the years. Thank you very much, Renee.
The pleasure.
Good to hear your voice again.
Okay.
So, just I've just put in one more word. Have patience with us and continue to fly with us. Don't book with any other airline except the Airline Radio Show. All right, Rick, I see you're there and you've written the most interesting book about the most interesting person probably in the airline industry.
Well, that's nice to hear. You know, tomorrow is the second anniversary of her passing. And even before that, I was reading the last two pages of the book and I started crying, you know, because it became so vivid in my mind when the last time we saw Betty. And, you know, just wanted to update everybody who's aware that Betty's son, Christian, who's now 52 years old, he lives in a group home. He's severely affected by his Down syndrome, but he has nothing but love for people. And he's a typical Downs person. He just has this way about him that draws you in. And, you know, we credit Betty with all of that. You know, she instilled in him, as chaotic as her life was, in raising him and not having a partner or husband that really contributed. You know, this book was just something I had to do because my wife, Sue, she flew with Betty for 50 years. And she actually retired. Betty never did retire. When she passed away, she was still on the payroll. And you know, that just goes to show me. And I just got a text message. I don't know how they got my number, but they knew I'd written the book. And evidently, there is a flight attendant that is with Delta that is within 2 or 3 years of equaling, if not surpassing, Betty's record.
The male
And
flight attendant.
no, it's female.
Oh, it is. Mhm.
Yeah. And she's been with Delta since 1958. And I got a little bit of the background about her and I looked her up and, you know, I thought for a second, Neil, that I was being punked too, you know, that they were giving me a line. But evidently this person is real, you know, and so I just said, well, good luck to you, you know, because it takes about 2 years to go through the whole Guinness thing and be approved and the documentation that it takes to show that she is a record holder. And sure enough, she's for real. So at the same time, I wished her luck. I didn't. You know,
Yeah. Oh, it's bittersweet.
but you
Wow.
know, yeah, it is kind of, but it hasn't happened yet. So
Hmm.
hopefully, you know, if she does, I wish her good health, and she earned it for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you know, Betty's life and her story and your book, they ought to think about making a movie about that.
You know, Neil, that's funny you should say that because a lot of people have said that. I don't think Betty. Um, she would probably say nobody can do me as well as me. I want to read you something, and it's funny you touched on this, or you tried to when we were setting up this. I want to read you the last sentence. Well, it's in the book anyway. Betty was quoted years ago when she was interviewed by a number of magazines and newspapers, and she said that she knows that people need love. That was the reason she loved her job. And she was quoted as saying, technology doesn't beat humanology. And I thought about that. I said, you know, she's so right. We've in this day of technology and instant communication, Betty was old school. And you could call her cell phone till the cows came home, but she would never answer it. But anyway, tomorrow is the anniversary, and we're planning on going by, and putting a stone on your marker. So anyway, just wanted you all to think about Betty, tomorrow. And 68 years as a flight attendant is just remarkable.
Yeah, that is.
Sure
It
is.
really
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Rick, and reminding us about that. We have your book linked on our site, but we'll be sure to relink that for all of our listeners here. We also had an episode with Rick about probably 1 year ago, almost to the date. And I know I can say, and Harry and everyone who's on the call, it was really touching to hear how you talk about Betty and just all the stories that she has. So I thank you for coming on again, and we'll be saying a prayer for Betty and for her family and her son today for sure.
Well,
is.
that's nice to know. And it's nice to know that her Eastern family, we'll never forget her.
Yeah.
She was just one of those, I've had so much communication from senators and congressmen, congresspeople from all over the planet who knew Betty, met Betty on a flight, mostly shuttle flights up to New York or Boston, and it just was such a treat to be able to hear their stories. I wish I would have talked to all of these people before I finished the book and put in some of the quotes. Some of the stories are just priceless. She had no problem addressing a senator, please take your seat and put put your seat in the upright position. No problem. She was Betty strictly by the book.
Excellent.
It might have been Betty that when Lyndon Johnson flew on Eastern, I guess on a shuttle flight, it probably sounded like it might have been Betty that told him to take his feet off that bulkhead in front of him, because he used to always like to put his feet up on the bulkhead.
Oh,
It's,
geez.
Neil, it's so funny you should mention that, because the story that popped into my head, I think probably most of you knew the name F. Lee Bailey. He was a famous, lawyer. Well, anyway, he was on the flight with Betty, and evidently a guy was sitting in front of him and put his seat all the way back. Well, F. Lee Bailey didn't like that, so he started, like a child, banging on the seat. Betty had to come back and said, "Look, would you like me to tell the captain to turn this place around and go back to the gate? Now stop acting like children and put your chair in the upright position." And that's just Betty. That's just, Betty took
Yeah.
charge, and she was in charge, and she knew it. But that was a story that popped into my head when you just said that, Neil.
Wow.
Yeah. Harry, I think I see the 615, but I don't see a picture. Is that Harry, Emily?
That's me.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't have a
You
show
must have
without
your
Harry.
hair up in rollers.
Wow.
That's a
Yeah.
great story to hear about Betty and how she operated. It would be kind of fascinating to know how she would handle these people today. Probably the same way
Yeah.
she did when she was flying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Betty was flying in 2024, 2025, when was her last year?
Well, the last time she flew was on November 2nd, 2024.
Okay.
And 2023. And she actually showed up for work, and the flight attendant that she was working with said, "Betty, you don't look well." And she said, "I don't feel well." So she got back on the crew bus and went back home. And I remember my wife, Sue Ellen, took a call from her, and we went down to her house, which she only lived 10 minutes from us, which was so coincidental. And she didn't look well. And, and I knew immediately. I took her pulse, and she was short of breath. So anyway, we had her admitted to the hospital. And sure enough, everything sort of came to light. And, and Betty was just like, "Well, I've beaten things before. I'll beat this." That was
Mhm.
Betty. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to admire the fighting spirit. I know some days I don't want to get to work for a minor cold, so she's certainly inspirational in more ways than one. We'll always remember Miss Nash.
She had 4,000 sick leave hours on the books when she died.
Did she keep a logbook of her flights or the time, her hours? Pilots do, of course, they have to.
Neil, she never threw anything away. She has her original, I don't know, you probably remember the little blue logbook.
Yeah, yeah.
She
I
had
had them too.
her first trip was December 7th, 1957. And it was from Miami to Atlanta. And she had who she flew with in little print in these little books, and
Yeah.
she kept everything. And we went through every bit of her paperwork and everything. And it was just amazing because we had to produce her original paycheck from Eastern Airlines. That was what Guinness required. And she had it.
My God.
Wow.
So, yeah. So,
Does
and
anyone else here
just every
have their original pay stubs? Anything like that?
Renee, I've got mine.
Pay stub, and it shows $475 a month that I started out with 2 children, a wife, and an apartment. And I don't know how that, today, of course, you couldn't make it with that. But
Yeah, we
I
ought
had
to
to
figure
borrow
out
some
what that
money.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to do, I guess.
Renee, did you
Neil.
say you have yours?
Yes, I do. May 1st,
Wow, okay.
1967.
May
Very
1st.
nice. Oh my gosh, you
Kathy?
guys, what shall I do?
No,
No,
Okay, all
I-
right, Kathy. Me and Kathy are on the same team here.
I don't think so. If I do, I don't know where it is.
That's a good answer.
Well, that was the one.
That's
That was the
funny.
one thing that we thanked Betty. Because we didn't know where to begin. Of course, Guinness immediately, contacted us, said, "Look, this is what you need," and they didn't fade away from it at all. And we had to put everything together, send it over to England. They would not take anything electronically; it had to be paper form. And it took over a year and a half to hear from them. And that evidently is normal for anybody that's applying for a Guinness, award.
I knew the lady that was the fixed base operator and owner of an air service in Knoxville, Tennessee, and her name was Elizabeth Johnson. And Elizabeth at that time had more hours than anyone flying, period, men or women. And I think she had, and they wrote a book about her, Evelyn Johnson. That was her name, Evelyn Johnson. And they wrote a book about her. She was on the Johnny Carson show, as a matter of fact. And she had like 67,000 hours. I thought my 27,000 hours was a lot of time, but 67,000. Now, this was in small airplanes, of course, Cessnas and Piper Cubs and that type of thing. Well, I would like to talk to you about an article that I wrote that has gotten a tremendous reader or response from Facebook. Kathy, you may have read it, and some of the other listeners listening in today. But I want to make it is available on our website, airlineradioshow.com. Emily's done a remarkable job in putting that website together. Now, when you open up the website page, you see an airliner flying through and the clouds moving by. And I don't know how she did that magic, but I feel like I'm flying that airplane, by golly. And
Well, thank
she's
you,
done a
Neil.
great job. And she's put some stories on there. A lot of my stories, I hate to hog all of it, but I was very pleased with the original article that I did about Wonder Dog. And people are still talking about Wonder Dog on the Facebook page. And so I just wanted to mention we had a famous dog in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the airport, and a stray dog wandered into the eastern area of the terminal, and those guys adopted that dog. Well, it became a mascot or an airport dog, as it eventually became. But I remember getting out of the car after a layover and going into the terminal, and there's Wonder Dog all sprawled out on that nice, cool marble floor and cooling itself. And you had to step over it. Even the passengers booking their going to the ticket counter, they had to step over Wonder Dog. Wow. Now, they had a cape for Wonder Dog that said WD, and they had a little helmet made for it. And the flight attendants are the ones that I think really Wonder Dog loved to hang around Eastern, because they all fed him the steaks and the filet mignons that were left over on the flights when they got off the airplane. So it's a good story. You get a chance, read it. It's on the website. It's on the Airline Radio Show under flight blogs. I think you have it, Emily.
Yep, under flight logs. And let that be a call for all of our listeners. Please submit any story that you remember fondly or that comes up for you one day. You don't have to be a published author like Neil or Rick in order to get a spot there on the site. It just really anything. We love sharing those stories, and they're really the best ones. You know, we have the news media and reporters and stuff like that, but we love preserving the real oral history, the humanology behind it, as Betty would say. So if you're listening, please submit through the contact form, and we'd love to see some more stories there.
Yeah.
Speaking of some headlines this week, I was curious for people on the call, did you guys hear about the 2 U.S. Navy jets that collided at the Idaho Air Show? I believe it was last Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys make of that? I mean, Neil, I know you might have had you had a air show close call one time, I believe. It was not a really bad one this past weekend, as in all 4 crew members ejected safely. It was a loss of about $136 million for those jets. The investigation's still ongoing, so we can't say if it was pilot error or plane malfunction, but it certainly was a shocking video. If you haven't seen it, I recommend looking it up.
Emily, about my near experience, but I had a partner that we were hired together with Eastern, and we started a flight school in Atlanta, and it gave us a little bit of extra money. So we bought all the toys that we could. And one of the toys that we had was a Stearman biplane, open cockpit, 2 wings, of course, biplane. And we did air shows. I did the one in 1970, and John did the one in 71, in which he was killed in the airplane doing an air show that we had. They wanted us to do it every year. And he unfortunately, I don't know whether it was pilot error. Some folks thought that he was depressed and it might have ended his life that way. But at any rate, he lost his his life in a beautiful airplane and a wonderful friend I lost. But I almost lost 300, probably 400 people on a story that I wrote and just posted it on Facebook and also on the Airline Radio Show. And it was a flight that one of the last flights I had from Atlanta to San Jose, Costa Rica. And on that flight, I mentioned that the Everglades was on fire. And if you remember, sometimes the Everglades would be on fire and the smoke was so thick you couldn't see an inches in front of your nose. And I tell the story that I took a trip through it one time by car and actually had to open the driver's door to look out to the highway to see the yellow line. That's how thick it was. But this day, coming back from San Jose with a stop in Miami, we ran into the same fog or smog or fire, smoke. And it was so thick that everybody was having to make instrument landings in Miami. Well, they gave us a frequency. The frequency did work. To make a long story short, I sent the first officer back to get another frequency. And when we went up on that frequency, Miami Tower, the tower was saying Eastern, make an immediate left turn, Air Canada, make an immediate right turn. And as I made the left turn, and maple leaf showed up in my first officer's window. That's how close it was.
Oh my gosh.
There were 200 people on my airplane. Don't know how many Air Canada was carrying, but it was over right downtown Miami. So that's how close my mid-air collision was. And landing the airplane, I mentioned the fact that my legs were rubbery. When I put the brakes on the airplane to stop on the runway, they were bouncing all over the place. It frightened me so much. And we did find out what the problem was. It was the dead frequency, but it was written up several flights before. And it's an interesting story. I think you'll like to read on it, but it's a true fate is a hunter type story. And if you've never read Ernest Gann's book, Fate is a Hunter, there are many stories that Ernest Gann that flew for American Airlines and wrote great books for movies. High and the Mighty was one of his books and one of his movies. But that's how close it was.
That is a very close call. My stomach was a little uneasy listening to that. It reminds me of a post I saw this week on the Eastern Airlines retiree Facebook. If you guys aren't a part of that, it's actually a group. It's not a Facebook page, but lots of great stories shared in there. Neil and Barbara Bucata, who's with Silverliners International, they're always in there engaging, sharing photos. It's a great group. But this week there was a post that went kind of viral within the group about Eastern Airlines Flight 1320, which you guys may be familiar with. It was hijacked carrying passengers from Newark to Boston on St. Patrick's Day, 1970. A lone gunman had demanded to be taken to the cockpit of the Eastern Airlines DC-9, and the gunman actually shot the co-pilot, shot the pilot, fatally wounded the co-pilot, James Hartley. But despite being shot in the chest, he was able to still wrestle the hijacker to the ground, shot him, and then the pilot, who was shot in both arms, was able to land the plane safely. And really heroes, both of them, the pilot and the co-pilot. And one of the top comments on there, which is why I love this group so much, because you get to share the story, but then you get to read the stories of people who were there or who knew these people. So it was, let's see, his name here, Jerry Alexander, Eastern Airlines pilot from 1968 to 89. He said, I was flying at Eastern Electra as a backup on the shuttle that night. It was St. Patrick's Day, one that I'll never forget. I knew both Jim and Bob. Some crews had planned on going into New York City that night after duty to celebrate the holiday. A few still did, but to reflect on what had happened that evening. I flew with Bob later on, and his scars were clearly visible. A tremendous effort by both men. Did you guys know of that story?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to make
Sure
a
did.
comment about that, Bob. Bob's a good friend of mine, and he came to my school to get his ground school for his airline transport rating. And we honored Bob Wilbur at a reunion in Fort Lauderdale. We had the president of the new Eastern Airlines there and Bob's family, and we honored him as a Hall of Fame award winner that year. And he did a remarkable job. I always told Bob, I said, darn it, you look like Johnny Carson. And I tease him all the time by saying, hey, Johnny. And he knew I knew his name. But he did. He favored Johnny Carson. But you can see in that
That's
picture,
funny.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, now that you mention it, because I was looking through the comments and someone else had said that he looks like Johnny Carson. So
Yeah.
I fully believe you on that one.
Oh, you got to believe everything I say.
I guess that's part of the job description, right, Neil?
Yeah. Harry, did you ever meet Bob Wilbur?
Yeah. He was Atlanta based. I think I did. Yeah.
No, he was Miami based, but
No.
he flew,
Okay. I
flew out of
remember,
Atlanta.
I remember the name,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever met him. No.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about stories, I'll mention this one. This is not an Eastern story, but tomorrow is the 38th anniversary of TACA 110, which was a 737 that lost both engines due to hail and water ingestion. This is the 38th anniversary tomorrow of that famous landing, where the pilot, Captain Carlos Dardano, who was from El Salvador, I believe, landed that 737 on a levee with no power down close to New Orleans. It's a fascinating story if you're not familiar with it. Captain Dardano actually only had one eye. He had lost his other eye in a guerrilla uprising in South America. They shot him and he lost his eye, but he was certified by the FFA to fly. And he only recently retired a couple of years ago, but it was an absolutely fascinating story up there with Miracle on the Hudson.
Yeah. Above that almost. One eye, I guess he doesn't need the other one. If he had two eyes, he'd probably have x-ray vision or something like that, just because he's so talented. I mean, that's incredible. I'd never heard of that, so I'll be looking that one up. It's a good one, Harry. What was
Harry,
110.
Oh,
go ahead,
Harry. That was yeah. I'm sorry. That was a an episode on the Air Disasters channel.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you're right. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could watch that over and over again. It was just fascinating.
Yeah. The different elements to that story. It's stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
he was all set to make a water landing in the canal, and his first officer pointed out this little levee. So that's where he landed, on that levee.
Yeah. I remember that.
My
Hey,
God.
Neil, did you, it just came up in my mind. Were either you or Harry based in Miami?
I lived in Miami, but I wasn't based there, no.
Are you familiar? Does the name, now this was a nickname that the flight attendants gave this pilot because he owned some apartment complexes in Miami, and a lot of flight attendants, of course, back then, doubled up, tripled up, and they called this guy evidently had a rare form of Tourette's, and they called him Blinky. Now, I don't know if that filtered down to the pilots, but the flight attendants called him Blinky because he had this Tourette's. And they all were just puzzled. How did this guy ever get his license? And
Oh my goodness.
when she told the story, it would just crack you up. I mean, she said, "Oh yeah, well his name was Blinky," and I said, "Wait a minute, Betty." I said, "Why did they call him Blinky?" And she did, she was the kind, she had very dry sense of humor sometimes, and she just said because he blinked all the time, he had Tourette's.
Well, I
We
hear
had
with Tourette's.
one captain in Miami was named Slow Walker. And I guess he was just walking through life slowly, but he got that nickname. There were a few others.
Hey, that's a good way to do it. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We are going to take about a 2-minute commercial break. So grab a drink of water, kick your feet up. If you're listening through the Captain Eddie player, please feel free to jump in and join the meeting. We will be right back.
Attention captains and veterans of the Airline Radio Show. You've spent decades in the skies building a lifetime of aviation history. But your logbooks, cockpit photos, and rare patches shouldn't sit in a box unseen. Your legacy deserves to be preserved and shared. Run With It Photography provides professional archival services. Matt will travel to your home to photograph and catalog your entire airline collection with expert care. Preserve your flight path for the next generation. Visit runwithit.photography to preserve your aviation legacy.
In today's world, if your brand isn't seen or heard, you're invisible. At Conliff Media Group, we don't just create content, we build platforms. From high-quality video production and animation to broadcasting on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV, to websites that actually convert visitors into customers. We help churches, businesses, creatives, and event organizers tell their stories the right way. Need monthly media support? We offer retainers that keep your brand consistent and growing. Want more exposure? Advertise on KOS Radio and KOS TV and reach audiences beyond social media. This isn't guesswork. This is strategy, creativity, and execution all in one place. Your vision deserves more than life. It deserves impact. Visit conliffmediagroup.com. That's Conliff Media Group, where your message meets the world.
A big thank you to our two sponsors there. That's Matt with Run With It Photography. He's offering archival services. So for any of our listeners who have physical photos or maybe some VHS videos that you, or even Eastern coin, or just something that you don't have in a digital format, that's a coworker that I work with at my full-time job, and he's offering those services to our Airline Radio Show listeners. So go to runwithit.photography if you're interested in learning more, or you can message me through Airline Radio Show and I can connect you with Matt. So in a bit of other news this week, I'm not sure if you guys were able to listen to the Rededicate 250 event that happened in DC. Many of you may know that it is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. So happy birthday, America. And in it, they had a speaker who brought up a Pan Am flight. So I wanted to play a quick clip of that conversation.
When Pan Am Flight 103 or Black Monday or Chernobyl conspired to fracture our sense of stability and safety, I still believed somehow we would persevere. One nation, under God.
So that was actor Jonathan Romy, who actually plays Jesus in The Chosen. But I was listening to that, and I just thought it was so unexpected almost to hear Pan Am, and another flight that I hadn't heard of, and looked into it some more. And what a tragic event that was. It was an international flight, and there was a bomb on board. So it was it went down in our nation's history, so much so that we're remembering it on the 250th anniversary. But I wonder, does anyone on the call have a memory of the Flight 103?
Emily, I was talking to you before the show when you brought that you were going to mention that on the radio show today. And my connection to that was the fact that my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, was the head of the FBI in London. He and my sister were having dinner at a downtown London restaurant. He got the call, and they wanted him to go immediately to Lockerbie, where the airplane went down. And he was the lead investigator for the FBI on the Lockerbie. I talked to him a few times about that, and he didn't want to talk too much about it. I don't know why. But yeah, that was interesting that he was at the American Embassy with the FBI there in London when that happened.
Yeah, one of my coworkers said that he was on a high school jazz band trip in Europe, and it was a scary time for them to fly back because it just happened. But I know there's some good news for Pan Am, and Pan Am is a much beloved airline, as we know. Neil, did your friend, what were you saying about that?
My brother-in-law, Rich Green, was that who you're talking about? Or
Yeah, the president.
Yeah,
He's become the new
yeah.
president of Pan Am, right?
Oh, yes. Ed Weigel, who started Eastern, we call it 201. The first Eastern was Eastern Airlines 101. And Ed Weigel started the second attempt to put Eastern back in the air. And he was on our radio show a couple of times. And he was the speaker when we gave the Hall of Fame award to Bob Wilbur for his heroic landing of that DC-9 with both arms shot. But I see I've got a young lady that has just joined us, and I want to say a special welcome to Judi. Judi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, yes.
Loud and clear.
Well, I
Loud
just
and
want
clear.
all of you wonderful folks. 1 o'clock, I've been trying to get on this thing, so that was a lot of effort put in just to see you all.
Well, thank you
And I'm
so
glad
much
I'm
for
here.
joining.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
Is this your first time calling in?
I'm sorry?
Is this your first time being part of the show?
Yes. Yeah, yes, and I've almost missed that, haven't I?
No, you made it just in time, Judi. Were you with Eastern Airlines, or what airline were you with?
Oh, yeah.
With Eastern.
Great.
Oh, yeah. I
Eastern's
asked
the best,
Judi,
huh?
I asked her before, I was trying to attempt to tell her how to get on the radio show. And as a matter of fact, thank you, Judi. You just brought up a simpler way of getting on to the radio show by just, if you have Google or Siri, you just mash the button and say go to airlineradioshow.com, and you are
All right.
there. It's so
Well, I
simple.
found out that my computer said that browser didn't accept it or something, so I don't know. So I'm on the phone. But anyway, I'm here, and I'm so happy to see some of you. I don't know how to see all of you, but I'm not worried about it right now.
Judy, were
won't
you
turn my
a
picture on.
Eastern's flight agent like Kathy, or were you a stewardess, or what was your position with Eastern?
Flight attendant.
Okay,
Okay.
great. My grandma was a flight attendant with Delta, so we always love when flight
Oh, you're
attendants
making me
join.
feel really old.
Oh no, well, I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
mean
okay,
that.
though. I'm used to it. Yeah, that's
Okay, but
okay.
my grandma is one of the best people ever. So her picture's actually on our photo gallery. So if I compare you to her, then you are very high up in my book. But
Oh, that is the kindest thing I've heard in a long time. Thank you.
of course, yeah, Judy, we got to have you on more often. But
You and Kathy
Well,
make a good team, Kathy.
yes,
So
thank
I
you.
asked Judi,
Thank
I
you.
said, do you have any war stories or airline stories that you can remember? And she said, oh, yeah, I'm sure you do, Judi. Yeah.
what comes to
I
mind,
do.
Judy? I tend to ask about any crazy passengers, but I know there's more to flight attending than that. So, what's one of your most memorable moments in your career?
Well, the one that I can probably by next time I can think of more, but I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. When I started flying, they sent me to New York. So, sending a little country girl from Nashville, Tennessee to New York is kind of a big thing. So we finally got a room. We lived in Kew Gardens, and we had a trip. They assigned me a trip. I was on reserve, and they assigned me a trip to Miami. And I said, okay, I'll go. Well, it was a stretch 8. Neil, you know what that was. So it held a lot of people, but it was long. It was the longest airplane I've ever been on. Anyway, we were all new. I had 2 weeks seniority, and everybody else was junior to me. And there must have been, 6, 8 flight attendants. I don't know how many. So we got the trays out, and the captain said, we'll be landing in so-and-so time. And we looked, every tray we had was still out, and the people had them. So we had to go through and pick up those trays. We did. We got them all in, but we didn't latch the door. And so on landing, all of those trays came out to how many people on that plane. And when the caterers opened the door, they started screaming at us and yelling and what was wrong with us. And here, it's one of my first flights, less than 2 weeks. And I sat there and looked at them, and I looked at the other girls, and all we could do was laugh. I was sure I was going to be fired, but I made it.
Well, it sounds like you weren't, and that sounds like the proper decision as well. So we're glad to hear that.
Unlike you, you're a very neat
Well,
young
thank
lady.
you. Oh my gosh, Judy's now our favorite caller, guys. I'm just kidding, but in some good news for flight attendants this week. I don't know, Judi, if they were doing boarding pay for you with Eastern, but the United flight attendants have now approved and ratified a new labor contract. So they'll be getting their first pay increase in 6 years along with boarding pay. And I hear, at least according to my notes, that Delta Airlines was the first airline to offer boarding pay in 2022, followed by American Airlines, which is who Betty was with, right, Rick?
Right.
And now United. So, Judi, if they were giving you a hard time about those boarding procedures, you can just tell them that they weren't paying you for that. So you get what you get.
That's right. That's right.
That's good.
So.
All righty. Well, our time here on. Oh, go ahead, Judi.
Oh, I do have one of the shorts. One more short
yours
one.
is better than mine.
I doubt that. But anyway, you just can't tell all of yours because you were in the cockpit. You can tell all of those. Anyway,
some FCC violations.
Yeah. The first flight that they called me for in New York, now, and imagine this, there's 4 flight attendants in a 1-bedroom apartment in Kew Gardens. So we had 4 beds that lined up against the wall, and 1 phone, and if the phone was under somebody's bed, whoever used it last. Anyway, they called me for a trip to, I forgot where it was going. And no, that's not it. That's a different one. I was flying with this flight attendant, and I said, look, we were bidding for the next month, our new bid. And I said, okay, so what happens?
You just fell off the line, Judi.
I think it was so good that she got booted off the cell tower.
Yeah.
That's
Judi,
okay.
we'll have to hear the rest of the story on our next broadcast, okay?
Or Neil, you give me her email and then I'll post it online
I will.
too. That sounds like a good blog.
While she's talking or trying to get back online, a real quick story I've told 100 times, I think, on the radio show. The most embarrassing moment I had with a flight attendant was when I was temporarily based in New York. I went up there by choice because you could make a little bit of extra money flying out of your base. And so I went up there temporary duty, and I'd never flown a shuttle flight. And I knew the efficiency and how they operated, but I never was a captain on the shuttle. So I went out to the airplane, signed all the papers, and got into my seat and talked to the front end crew. We had 3 of us up there. And the flight attendant had boarded the passengers, and she came up and asked me if there was any final instructions that I had to give her. And I said, no, I don't think so. I don't know of anything. And then as she turned to go out, I thought I would really be Georgia cute and come up with something that it might be cute. And I said, oh, yes, there is one thing. We'll be flying over water. And if we go down, would you get the liquor kit and get in my raft? And I thought that was funny. And but anyhow, she just kind of shrugged her shoulders and went back to the back. And the co-pilot said, do you know who that was? And I said, yeah, she was a head flight attendant. He said, no, she was the surviving flight attendant on Flight 66 that crashed at Kennedy in a microburst thunderstorm. And she was the surviving. Get the liquor kit and get in my raft.
Well, thank you. I
Neil, that's a foot in mouth moment.
Well, I finally figured out how to do it.
We had a short
maybe
turnaround,
next time I can get on time.
And I said, I'm going to buy your lunch. And we went down, and I told her and I apologized. She said, no. She said she had fallen off the horse and got back on. And she was incredible. I can't remember her name now. Somebody told it to me. But you're talking about putting your foot in your mouth. Judi, you're looking good.
Yes, we see your picture, Judi.
Oh, good.
Okay.
In the last 90 seconds, Judi is a model Airline Radio Show listener. You don't give up until 2:00. Then we got to just try again next Saturday. I love it.
We've been playing bumper music. Hang on a second. We've been playing bumper music, and we've been getting some feedback from our tech guys, and they say you're going to have to stop using Merle Haggard Silver Wings because we're getting some lawsuit threats of using that. And so we're going to change our bumper music in the opening of the show. And we're going to put Roy Rogers and Dale Evans singing Happy Trails to You as a closing. That's going to be on the next broadcast. You remember that,
Great.
don't you guys? Yeah.
Neil showed me that song. It's a good one. It'll change your mood. Was her name Mary Ellen Mooney, Neil?
Mary, yeah, the first name was Mary. Yes, that's right.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And
Just did a little
wonderful
Google
gal. She was
search.
really, yeah. I asked her. I said, when you were landing, of course, when Flight 66 went in at Kennedy,
He was a great.
there was a
great
microburst that pushed the airplane down, and no matter how hard they tried to pull the airplane back up into the air, the draft was so strong that it just pushed them into the ground. And we had another Eastern captain that I loved to fly with. Name was Captain Gib Garrett. And I know, Judi, you have flown with Gib probably many times. And his son was the instructor engineer on that flight. So he lost his life too. But it's tragic.
So, all right, guys.
Yeah.
A lot of legends here on the show today, and we will be posting some of the highlights from today's show on our social media. So be sure you are following us on your favorite platform. We have a Facebook, we have a Twitter or an X, we have an Instagram, and we have a YouTube. Last week, we posted Harry's stories from the grounds crew from his time with Eastern, and we got more than 1,000 views on that. And we also had Colonial or Continental dispatcher Mark Fullerton share some stories. He also gave us a little bit of insights on the United Airlines collision with a bread truck in Newark that you really can't find anywhere else. So I posted both of those onto our social media. So definitely check those out if you can, and look for this week's clips. So before we land the plane here or turn off the fasten your seatbelt signs, does anyone have any last thoughts here? Rick, maybe where can we get your book? And Kathy, maybe hear from you. Renee, Harry, really, Judi, anyone, any final notes for our listeners?
Oh,
Well,
great.
Well,
there you go.
Yeah, the book is available at Amazon or oh gosh, you name it. Goodreads. It's pretty much anywhere that they sell books, you know.
Okay,
And
great.
that's a front of her book. I think what I would like to emphasize more than anything is the way Betty looked at life. And she was interviewed by a flight attendant from British Airways who we've met. He did an interview with her and posted it and said that, you know, that
Rick, who is
expression,
it?
more
Was Betty
humanology than
related to you?
technology. I'll never forget that, because that to me is the airline business. You know, I mean, we're so technically
Oh,
oriented
okay,
now
I
that
got you.
just making personal contact with people, Betty was the epitome of that. She would wait for people to come on board and she'd say, "Where'd you get those shoes? That's a nice looking jacket. Can I get one?" And that's the way Betty was up
Wow.
front. And she was always up front, you know? So anyway, that's all I want to leave you with. But the book is available pretty much everywhere.
Great.
Well said, Rick.
No, my wife, Sue Ellen, flew with Betty for 50 years. And the interesting thing is that we just happened to live 10 minutes away from each other. So they were like a mother and daughter. I mean, Betty, you know, she didn't have too many relatives, of course, but Sue Ellen was basically her daughter. They were on the phone 3 or 4 times a day. They flew together. So it was a very personal relationship that Betty had with Sue.
Renee, did you ever meet Betty?
Pardon me?
Renee.
Oh, did you know her?
I think
No.
he's there.
I'm
He
here.
said
Yeah.
he couldn't. He didn't. He
Okay,
never met her.
he's up in
Yeah.
Canada. It takes a long time for the
Right.
signal to go up and
Far
back down
north.
to Canada.
Right.
Renee, were you going to say something for our listeners before we head out?
Yeah, this is the first time I've been on the show for quite a while, and I'm enjoying it. It's a new format,
good.
and I had trouble getting into it. So next time, I'll get my picture up there.
Okay, yes. We'll love to see you
All
again,
right.
Renee. I remember last time you were on the show.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome. Kathy?
Okay, I'll see you next week. Or in
Okay.
2 weeks, is it?
2 weeks.
That's
2
right.
weeks.
That's
You
right.
know, speaking of
2
that,
weeks,
I was
so that'll
talking
be
to
June
Emily
6th.
and Harry. Yeah, Harry and I did a couple of years, a series of stories that we read. Harry would read one, Linda, his wife, would read one, and I would read one. And we had an hour of reading stories by Eastern people. And so I thought that we might be able to somehow, in the week in between our regular broadcasts, we might air some of those shows. They're great stories. And if Harry, you don't mind, we'll try to see if we can do that.
Be great.
Okay.
Harry's our North Star. We can't do anything without Harry. He's
Emily,
always there for us.
Emily, before we go, did you get is Captain Ron lined up for the next show?
We have Captain Ron lined up, but he is going to be our June 20th show. So we had some conflicting
all
dates
right.
there. Can
Great.
you
Sounds
do a
good.
quick explainer on who Captain Ron is?
Captain Ron is a retired United Airlines pilot. He was a test pilot in the Air Force, lots of experience. He has a YouTube channel, Flying with Captain Ron Rogers or something like that. You can easily find him on YouTube. But lots of airline experience. I believe his son is
Let's
currently
just
a United
remember all of
captain.
our
But he's got some
veterans
great
and
stories,
well,
some great
current
insight.
people,
I think he'll
soldiers
be
and
a
everything
fabulous
too
guest to have on our
through this
show
holiday.
in the coming weeks.
Yes, we are looking forward. Yeah, Harry turned me on to him, and he has a great YouTube channel. He's a bit of a famous on YouTube, I'd say. So check out his channel and mark your calendars for June 20th when he'll be speaking with us here live. So anything from you, Judi? Otherwise, we are about ready to call it a show for today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well
Absolutely.
said.
Absolutely.
There is a national moment of remembrance at 3 p.m., I believe it is. So we will be keeping our military service members
everyone.
in our
Bye-bye.
thoughts. And of course, we have one of our very own. Harry is an Air Force veteran. So Harry, thank you for your service. And we will be thinking of you and your family and keeping all military members in our prayers.
Thank you.
Yes,
I am
Harry.
on here.
Yes.
Flash him. So.
All
Good.
right, that sounds great. Thank you again, everyone, for joining this episode of Airline Radio Show. We'll see you again on June 6th. Have a wonderful Saturday.
Same to you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.